Hey everybody, welcome back to the Let's Talk Q&A show. This is the weekly show where I answer all of your questions, and we just jump right into the show. So we're not going to waste any time. The first question this week is from 021OM6, and he wrote, what 10 4Ks would you get redone, and why each one needs changing? What would you want done to them to make it better? So I got 10 4K Blu-rays over here that I think should be redone for one reason or another. A lot of these are just very much disappointing 4K Blu-rays. Maybe some of them just came out too soon. Well, let's just look at what 10 4Ks I picked. The first one's a pretty recent release from Paramount Presents, and that is Ghost on 4K Blu-ray. One of the laziest releases that I have ever seen. The only thing that they upgraded on this, they didn't even upgrade the packaging unless you consider, upgrading from black to silver. That's it. That's all they did. This is the same thing as their previous Paramount Presents Blu-ray release, and they just upgraded the visuals ever so slightly. Nothing else was done. It's the same exact Dolby True HD 5.1, so this was a complete and utter cash grab, and I think Ghost deserves better than that. Ghost is one of the best films of the 1990s. It's the highest grossing film of 1990. It's a very beloved film. I really love Ghost, and I think it's one that, deserved a little bit more than just a slight visual upgrade, and they sold it to you like it was a premium release when it really wasn't. Next one I got is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, not the other two movies. The other two movies in this box set are great as far as the 4K Blu-rays go, but Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is not a great 4K Blu-ray release, and I believe it's probably because of the source material, because the other two movies look great on 4K Blu-ray, and, the second one probably had a bigger budget, and the first one, it just doesn't look that great. I do think there's a way to actually make it look better than it does, but right now, unfortunately, it's just not a great release, and I think Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which is the best of those three movies, deserves to look a little bit better than it does. Famously, one of the worst 4K Blu-ray releases ever is Terminator 2 on 4K Blu-ray, which is crazy. Studio Canal did this, and from what I understand and why it's so bad is because they put a 3D scan on that 4K disc, and that's why it's just wiped completely clean, that it looks like a wax figure out there, and it's ridiculous. Terminator 2 is one of the greatest films ever. People love Terminator 2. I love Terminator 2, and they gave us this great 4K steelbook, man. That's what makes it really disappointing, is you got a bad disc in here, but the steelbook is fantastic. And the next one is the Krzysztof Kieslowski films, the Three Colors trilogy from 1994 and 1995. The Blu-ray releases for this are great. They actually really have the perfect color timing that's supposed to match up. The Three Colors Blue kind of has like a blue tint to it. The Three Colors Red has like a red tint to it. White, kind of feels like it's got a white tint to it. But when they went to 4K Blu-ray, they all just kind of looked the same, and then they took out that tint. So when you're watching Three Colors Blue now, it doesn't have that like blue tint to it like it did on the Blu-rays. So I choose to watch the Blu-rays, which is ridiculous because I have the 4K Blu-rays. Now, as far as like sharper and greater detail, yes, that's all there. But you messed around with the color timing, and I wish they would just take the color timing of those Blu-rays and add it to the 4K Blu-rays, and you would have a perfect 4K Blu-ray release. Unfortunately, right now, you just got a bad 4K Blu-ray release. Next up, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And I tried to rewatch this one recently, and I just hate how much they warmed this one up, and how, it just looks so soft. And, sometimes that's fine, but when the Blu-ray looks sharper than the 4K Blu-ray, that's a real problem. When the detail looks better on the Blu-ray than on the 4K Blu-ray, that's a problem. Now, there are scenes in here that actually do look fantastic, but they are few and far in between, because, like, the one scene in the movie that I always sticks out in my head is when they get to the first hotel room, and on this 4K Blu-ray, it looks just super warm, super orange, and it never looked like that on the Blu-ray. It just, it looks natural. It looks more realistic. On this, Paramount makes that same mistake a lot, where things look way too warmed up, and they really messed up with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And it's a shame, because you get all the deleted scenes on this 4K Blu-ray, which hadn't been released before, so you got to keep the 4K Blu-ray around for that. And again, we're not talking about all the Superman movies in here. We're just talking about Superman the movie. Now, this came out on 4K Blu-ray before the other Superman movies came out on 4K. But unfortunately, they kept the same scan that people really didn't like with the original Superman 4K, and they just were lazy and packed it right back in here. And that's really disappointing, because Superman definitely deserves better than that. This is one of the most popular superhero films of all time. People love this one. Really kind of got the superhero genre going. Didn't get too much after this until about Batman in 1989. Then things really took off until 2008 rolled around, and then, we're kind of in the decline of what that was. But Superman just deserves so much more. It shouldn't look that bad. It's not a horrible looking 4K Blu-ray, but even when you compare it to the other 4K Blu-rays in the Superman franchise, it really sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's really disappointing. Next up is Forrest Gump, and there was hope, a glimmer of hope, that this was going to be fixed early this year when they got a new steelbook to celebrate its 30th anniversary. But no, unfortunately, it's still the same scan, and the biggest issue is that this one is just too dark. That's the biggest issue with this one. They really need to just brighten this one up because the detail is still great, as far as being a 4K Blu-ray goes. The biggest issue is that it's just too dark, and it's a shame because I love this movie. Next up is The Empire Strikes Back. A New Hope is the best looking of the Star Wars 4K Blu-rays, and that's because that's the only one that was done by 20th Century Fox before Disney purchased them, and this just feels really lazy. And The Empire Strikes Back, which I believe is the best Star Wars film of all time, deserved a lot more than what it got treated like here. And they oversell this all the time, and they pack it in with other stuff, they give it upgrades, and they never mess around with the scan, and that really bothers me because The Empire Strikes Back deserves so much more than what we actually got. Next up is Weird Science, which is a rare miss for Arrow Video, and they gave us great packaging with it, but this one, it's a very scene-to-scene thing where some scenes just look absolutely awful, and some scenes will look alright. That's the best we really get to, is like good. We never get to anything that's really great, and it's really disappointing because Weird Science, I was really excited to rewatch this movie. I was happy that I did it, that's why I kept it, because I'm glad I have it in my collection, but it should have been so much better. And then the last one is The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is just one of the greatest movies of all time. So many people love this movie. It used to be my favorite Batman film. It isn't anymore, but I still love The Dark Knight. But The Dark Knight was a huge deal on physical media, especially when it first came to Blu-ray. That really sold people on Blu-ray. Seeing the purple string going from the bomb in that one guy's mouth, or whatever, the smoke grenade, whatever the hell it was, going to the bus with the Joker, that was a huge deal. But it came to 4K Blu-ray, I feel like, it just came out too soon. It came out in the early days of 4K Blu-ray, and there just seems to be a lot of room for improvement. It just looks a little bit too dated to me, and I feel like with the modern technology, you give this a new coat of HDR, maybe throw some Dolby Vision on there, and I think you end up with a fantastic 4K Blu-ray, because it's not a bad one. It's just that, again, it's The Dark Knight, and it deserves so much more than what we actually got. And the other one I want to bring up is Goodfellas. I got rid of that 4K Blu-ray. It definitely deserves an upgrade. Inglourious Basterds is another one that I got rid of. I'm hoping that this new one is an upgrade to the previous 4K scan that we got from Universal. I've heard both things. I've heard that it is an upgrade, and then I've heard that it's the exact same scan. Now, I'm hoping at the very least they touch it up, kind of like what they did with the Silence of the Lambs 4K Blu-ray, where their 4K Blu-ray is the definitive edition now, way better than Kino Lorber's release. So fingers crossed with Inglourious Basterds. But that was a fun question, 0210M6. I really appreciate that, buddy. Thank you so much. And the next question is from By His Strep, and then it cuts off, so I'm not exactly sure what that name finished up with it, but he wrote, what do you think of this obsessive nitpicking that goes on these days with just about every release? If you pause the scene and zoom in, you can spot the AI going on in the background. Characters, never mind under a fraction of a section during normal playback, and you can't spot it. But dang it, I searched and found the hill to stand on and deemed this release not worthy. It's crazy. And I completely understand what you're saying because, yeah, I'm not one of those people that goes in and nitpicks every little detail of a 4K Blu-ray release. I'm also not one of those people that goes into the specifics of everything. I'm not the biggest tech guy, so I don't really talk about bitrate here on the channel. And, I don't even really talk about the size of the disc. There's other great channels out there, or even if you follow on the artist formerly known as Twitter X, like HD Movie Source, they'll go into the details like that if you're into that. I don't really knock those people, but it's also not something that I'm into. I just really want to know, does it look good? Does it look bad? That's always something that I look for, and that's kind of what my reviews are like as well. I just want to tell you guys if it's good or bad. Like, the most I'll go into is like, does this scene look bad? Does certain colors not really look too good? But, I'm not going to nitpick and go, look over here, like, this looks like flatter in the background, this is slightly upscaled. That's just not something I choose to do. I kind of like to look at the 4K Blu-ray as the total package. The visuals are just one part of it. You got the visuals, you got the audio, you got the packaging, and you got the extras. The visuals, yes, for most people is the biggest part, and I completely understand that. You want to put your TV to great use, so you want to make sure that it looks as prime as it possibly can. But for the most part, when you nitpick every little detail, you might convince yourself that you're not liking something. For the most part, most of us are sitting down watching the movie and just taking it in for what it is. We're not sitting there going, oh, at the 1 hour and 10-minute mark, the scene kind of hiccuped a little bit, and I noticed that the hair didn't look that real in this moment. Well, for the most part, no one's going to notice that. But the thing is, a lot of people do put the work in to actually find these little things, and some people do appreciate that. I'm not one of those people. I agree with you, like nitpicking every little detail. Is it really worth it? It's not really worth it. Just really let people know overall, is it good or bad or not, or have they changed things around or not? Let people know that kind of stuff. But nothing is flawless. If you sit there searching, you'll find a flaw in anything that you're looking at. I like to think that I'm a flawless human being, but some people will tell you I'm not. I'm just kidding again, guys. My ego isn't that big. But what do you guys think? Do you guys prefer the nitpicking, or do you guys just prefer a broad overview of the 4K Blu-rays? Let me know in the comments section. That was a great question, buddy. Thank you so much. I wish I had your full name. I cut it off, and that's my fault. I'm sorry about that. And the next question from Kevin Kruger. Now that we finally have James Cameron's entire filmography on 4K, how would you rank the 4K? So I'm gonna rank them for you guys, but I don't have the avatars on 4K Blu-ray. I was actually gonna buy them for this question, but the real big issue with buying them on 4K Blu-ray is then I have to watch them on 4K Blu-ray, and I really don't want to put myself through that. I can't stress to you guys enough. I know a lot of people love the Avatar movies. I really do not like them. I tried, like last year when Avatar 2 was coming out, I tried to get in the spirit. I rewatched Avatar 1, and I was like, yeah, it's alright. It's fine. I liked it. It's okay. I've seen it before, and, I probably won't watch it for another decade. It's the same thing with Avatar 2. I felt like, yeah, it's beautiful to look at. I love how we're pushing the technology, and I'm sure those 4K Blu-ray discs are great, but I don't care how good a 4K Blu-ray disc is. If I don't like the movie, I'm not picking up that 4K Blu-ray disc. That's just the kind of person I am.
I like simple pleasures like butter in my ass, lollipops in my mouth. That's just me.
I understand there's a lot of collectors out there that just want to show off the system. I respect that. I can appreciate that. But for me, the movie comes first. If it's a good movie, I can forgive some stuff. If it's a bad movie and the 4K Blu-ray disc is out of this world, I don't care. I don't give a shit. I don't want it in my collection. I don't want it tainting the other movies in there by being bad. And I'm not saying the Avatar movies are bad. They're good movies. It's just I personally do not enjoy them. So this is going to be the rankings of all the 4K Blu-rays without the Avatar movies. At the very bottom, you guys know it, Terminator 2 on 4K Blu-ray. One of the worst 4K Blu-rays ever released. It's notorious for being bad. We just talked about this a little bit ago. We're all hoping that one day we get Terminator 2 on 4K Blu-ray with a brand new scan, fixes all the problems. Terminator 2 is that movie that deserves that. And the next one was a little bit tougher for me, and I'll explain because I have True Lies here, and True Lies is definitely not a great 4K Blu-ray. It has issues, that waxy look to it. This is really where that James Cameron artificial intelligence issue really came up, was really with True Lies. Now, I'm kind of going to die on that hill where I feel like it's fine just because we haven't had True Lies since the DVD days. Now, there was like an overseas, not official Blu-ray scan. And, I don't necessarily count that because it's not an official release. So, going from DVD to 4K Blu-ray, I'm still going to forgive this one even with all its issues just because I was happy to have True Lies in my collection finally. I really do enjoy True Lies. And why I would put Aliens before that is because Aliens is technically a better 4K Blu-ray where I'll still be watching the Blu-ray over the 4K Blu-ray just because I don't love what they did with Aliens necessarily. It's still a good 4K Blu-ray scan. I understand why people out there like the original Fuzz, who, this is his favorite movie, loves the 4K Blu-ray. I can respect their opinion. We don't have to all agree on it, but I'm still going to choose the Blu-ray over this 4K Blu-ray. I don't necessarily love this scan. And next up, the beginning of the great scans out there of the James Cameron films. James Cameron films, if anything, they at least look beautiful, trying to push you to the next technological level. I know I just probably butchered that word, but, you got The Abyss. This is a great 4K Blu-ray. The best of those James Cameron 4K Blu-rays that came out earlier this year, True Lies, Aliens, and The Abyss. Definitely the best of those. The purples just pop off the screen. This is where, you can forgive what they were doing with the artificial intelligence, no matter how you feel about it. This is one where you kind of look at the results, and the results are great for this one. It's a beautiful looking 4K Blu-ray. And now this is tough. Now I want to put the Terminator at number 1, but if I'm being honest, as great as the Terminator 4K Blu-ray is, and it's a great 4K Blu-ray, I'm so happy that it's a very good release with, I'm really excited about the audio. I'm kind of nerding out a little bit about having those two great audio tracks on here, and the visuals, they might not be the greatest visuals you've ever seen, but they get pretty damn close, and I was really happy about that. So the Terminator is the second best James Cameron 4K Blu-ray, and that means if you haven't figured it out yet, I'll give it to Titanic. This is a great 4K Blu-ray that came out last year, and not enough people talk about it. It's a beautiful looking 4K Blu-ray. Titanic, not my favorite James Cameron film, but I do enjoy Titanic. I like coming back to it every few years, and this 4K Blu-ray is phenomenal, and I always enjoyed that great score to that movie too. So having that play through my speakers, being just loud and bombastic with those beautiful visuals, I have to give the edge to Titanic, even though my heart wants to go with the Terminator. And the next question is from Wolf Viking. He asks, my question for next week is, what are your top 5 Jackie Chan movies? I'll be completely honest with you, buddy. I'm not the biggest, Jackie Chan fan. Well, I'm a big Jackie Chan fan of, the human being. But as far as filmography goes, I've only seen probably, 10 or 11 Jackie Chan movies. So, unfortunately, I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Jackie Chan expert. But of those movies, I will give you my top 5. But it's probably the top 5 you got to take with a grain of salt, because I don't want to do a disservice to Jackie Chan. But, I might. I know people will probably disagree with my rankings, but at number 5, I got Police Story. This is one of the films he did in Hong Kong. It's a very famous film. It's very enjoyable. I've only seen it one time. I remember really liking it. Kind of when I was trying to go down a Jackie Chan rabbit hole. Number 4, I got Drunken Master. Now, this is just entertaining as hell, and all the moves that he's doing. One thing about Jackie Chan that no one can discredit is that as far as being a martial artist and just how smooth everything looks that he does, it's unbelievable. You can't believe that a human being can do that. It was just unbelievable. And I'll give also an honorable mention to the new TMNT movie that came out last year through Paramount. I remember seeing it in theaters. I think Jackie Chan was the voice of Master Splinter, and that's fantastic. Again, perfect voice casting there. At number 3, now this is a U.S. release, and my top 3, you guys will notice, are U.S. releases, and that's unfortunate. I have to see more Jackie Chan films. But I got Rumble in the Bronx. Now, this is another just really entertaining movie. Jackie Chan is just perfectly cast in it. And, playing a character you see him play all the time. Playing a cop. This time, again, another cop coming into the United States. Like you'll see in my maybe 1 or 2. We'll talk about that in a second. But kind of a similar setup to a lot of Jackie Chan movies. But it's a showpiece for Jackie Chan. And then at number 2, I got Shanghai Nights and Shanghai Noon. This is him teaming up with Owen Wilson. Kind of playing into the Rush Hour formula, teaming Jackie Chan up with somebody else, and it's very entertaining. I enjoy both of these movies. I used to have both of them on DVD, so they were kind of movies that were in my permanent rotation, just because I enjoyed the buddy comedy aspect of it. I thought they were really fun. And then at number 1, I obviously got the Rush Hour movies, more specifically Rush Hour 1 and 2, teaming up Jackie Chan with Chris Tucker, one of the best buddy cop movies of all time. I respect people who think Rush Hour 2 is better than 1. I still think the original is best. You can only introduce these characters to each other one time, and you do that in the first movie. Rush Hour 2 is fantastic. Obviously, Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker have great chemistry. Now, again, this is me kind of being biased. Grew up with these movies and the Shanghai movies. I'm sure everybody's lists are very different than mine. I'm hoping that, I didn't discount how good Jackie Chan is with my list. But, hey, leave your list in the comment section below and let me know, what do you guys think of Jackie Chan and his great filmography? And the next question is from Rico Gomez, and he wrote, who is your favorite a-hole character in a movie, and what actor who plays the part good? Mine is the boss in the 1972 Willard, played by Ernest Borgnine. William Altman plays a-holes really well, although he is now long in the tooth, as we saw in the last Ghostbusters movie. Yeah, William Atherton, I think is how you pronounce his name, and actually he would be on my list from Ghostbusters. He's just a perfect asshole. He plays an asshole in Die Hard 2. Well, not Die Hard 2, also in the movie Die Hard, so he always plays an asshole. He's just got the perfect asshole look. I kind of like to actually see him kind of tone it back a little bit in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I like to see an asshole kind of come and change his ways a little bit as he gets older. I imagine this will probably happen with Happy Gilmore too. And another guy who plays an asshole really well is Christopher McDonald. He always plays an asshole. Look at Thelma and Louise. He's perfect for it, but he plays a great asshole as Shooter McGavin, the antagonist in Happy Gilmore. And this is a guy who never learns his lesson in this movie. So it'll be pretty fun to see him come back. Maybe he's a little bit nicer. Maybe we kind of cut off that sharp edge. I like to see that happen. And he's just a prick in this movie, but he's great at it. Christopher McDonald always just plays that character so well. And then another one, a lot of people might disagree with this one, Ferris Bueller. I think he's a real schmuck. I mean, he's just a horrible, horrible friend. He's always dragging his buddy out and forcing him to do things he doesn't want to do. he's really this guy, he's trying to live a normal life, but he's always pushing his friends to do things they don't want to do. He kind of bullies them into doing these things. I don't really think Ferris Bueller is that great of a character. I don't really think he's a nice guy. He's definitely not somebody who should be worshipped. I mean, if he was my friend, I would tell him straight to his face, hey buddy, you're an asshole. So I don't really like that guy that much. And you kind of look at it, it's not his fault, he's a little kid, but Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone, as you become an adult, you realize, you know what, Macaulay Culkin, that kid's a little dick. He really is. The way he was stomping around, he really needed to learn a lesson. I would have sent him to the attic too if he was my kid, if I'm being honest. The rest of the family, they're not. Uncle Frank's not a great guy either, but he did knock the soda over. He's being a little prick. He needed to go upstairs. I completely understand that. And then a couple big ones from the 1980s. You got to look at Biff from the Back to the Future movies. He plays an asshole no matter what movie he's in. And then Mrs. Deagle from Gremlins. She's just a horrible, horrible person. That's why nobody ever feels bad when she gets launched out of the ceiling of her house. She's just ridiculous. You hate her just from the beginning. Just a terrible person. So, yeah, she's a terrible a-hole in films as well. That was a great question, Rico Gomez. Thank you so much, buddy. And the next question is from Poppy129, and they said, have you seen Dead of Winter from 1987? It's on Tubi. Rodney McDowall is amazing in it. I haven't seen that film, but because you recommended it, I'll try and check this film out in the next couple weeks, and I'll report back to this question when I do. So, yeah, I always appreciate film recommendations. I kind of put them on a list. I try and see all of them, but, there's just not enough time in the day. If it was up to me, I'd be watching movies just 24/7. But, unfortunately, we do need to make money. The world kind of needs it. And the next questions are from Mr. Smelly Potato. He asked me what my favorite dinosaur was, and this might surprise you. Not really a big dinosaur guy. Other than the first Jurassic Park movie, never really cared for dinosaurs. And, Godzilla doesn't count. Godzilla is a monster. He's not a dinosaur. Might look like a dinosaur, but not a dinosaur. And, yeah, so really I can only go with, the T-Rex just because he's the best dinosaur in the first Jurassic Park movie. And then he got another question that said, what is your favorite movie from each of these categories? Happy ending. And my favorite happy ending, literally they ride off into the sunset. The end of the Indiana Jones trilogy, The Last Crusade, where father, son ride off into the sunset. That is the perfect happy ending to a film. Bittersweet ending. We talked about it earlier. Ghost. They get to say goodbye to each other, but of course, Sam is still dead. He's still got to go to heaven. So even though he gets to say goodbye to Whoopi Goldberg and Demi Moore, that's it. It's over. But at least they get that goodbye. Not everyone gets that goodbye. I don't know how many people are going to get that exact goodbye from Ghost, because I don't know how many people have seen that. Unhappy ending. Terms of Endearment. As far as Terms of Endearment goes, this is a movie that's always guaranteed to make me cry no matter what. Having to watch a mother who's about to die of cancer say goodbye to her kids, yeah, if you don't break down from that, you might want to get yourself checked out, because that's just terribly sad. And it's really hard to see, but of course the movie ends at their funeral, so it's a very sad ending, but it does leave glimmers of hope in there, and that's why you bring in a director like James L. Brooke, who's known for doing sitcoms, but he can balance that line between drama and comedy very well, and I think it's just a perfect sad ending to a film. Ambiguous ending. Well, you got to go with probably the most famous one of all time, right? Inception. People are still debating if that top tipped over or not. I personally think it did, but you never know. I go back and forth. I truly believe that Christopher Nolan leaves it ambiguous on purpose. You can go either way. I think he leaves you hints for both answers. I think both answers are correct or both answers are wrong, depending on how you look at it. Twist ending. I'm going to go with either Fight Club or Primal Fear. Both of them including Edward Norton, but great twist endings. I'm not going to spoil those twist endings here, but yeah, Fight Club and Primal Fear have some of the greatest twist endings, and both of them weren't spoiled for me, which is great. So that was a great question as well, Mr. Smelly Potato. And we got a couple more questions after I was done recording, so this is the next day, so I'm going to answer these questions right now, and this one is from Haunted Pillowcase, which is an awesome name, and he said, hypothetically, if you were single and went on a date with a girl, and she said she hates movies and would guilt trip you if you watch them too much, would that be a deal breaker for you? Absolutely. As a movie fan, I would hope that the girl I'm dating loves movies, or at least can tolerate the fact that I love movies, because you get one shot of life. If you really love movies, you're going to want to at least have somebody who can appreciate them or allow you to appreciate them. Now, luckily for me, my wife, Faith, she's not the world's biggest film fan, but she does love movies. So I can always at least watch movies. She'll at least give most of them a try. And if she doesn't want to, she'll go watch something in the other room. We kind of have a good system worked out. She understands my passion for movies. So you got to find someone out there who has that same exact passion as you, or at least can tolerate your passion, because there's no point in you being with somebody who's going to be getting on you all the time for something you love. So that was a pretty good question, Haunted Pillowcase. Thank you, buddy. And this next one's from Tom Cruise's burner account, and he wrote, what are your thoughts on the Penguin show on Max? So yeah, I kind of talked about this on Let's Talk Physical Media last week, because the show's coming to 4K, Blu-ray, and Blu-ray. And I did. I watched the entire Penguin show on Max. We watched it week to week, me and my wife Faith, and we really enjoyed it. We got actually wrapped up in the story. Colin Farrell is phenomenal in it. Christy Milioti was phenomenal as well. Clancy Brown as Salvatore Maroni was fantastic. I just loved every single casting decision. The young Oz is perfect too. Every casting decision was great. It felt like it was the Matt Reeves Batman universe. I mean, one thing about the MCU and then the MCU shows is that you always can see that quality dip from the movies to the TV shows. Now, there is kind of a quality dip, and obviously it's not Matt Reeves, even though he plays a big part in making this show work. It doesn't really feel like it's something that is outside of that Batman universe, the Batman universe. This is Gotham City. We see everything that happened after the big flood at the end of the Batman and everything that takes place after that. It is a very captivating story. Every single episode made me want to watch the next one the next week. I couldn't wait for it, and it has a perfect ending. And I honestly, if you know how the show ends, I mean, it breaks your heart, but you shouldn't be that surprised. You should have probably saw that one coming. You know what they're trying to sell you, and this does leads perfectly into the Batman 2. So I cannot wait for the Batman 2, and I love what they did with the Penguin. So if you guys haven't checked out the Penguin, I could definitely recommend it. You can watch the whole series right now on Max, and it's also coming to physical media. And that was a great question, Tom Cruise's burner account. Thank you so much, buddy. And the next question is from Deranged Psychopath 1K. He wrote, what's the most recent movie you watched for the first time that blew you away? So this is, I think, this could be new or old movies, I assume. And the movie I watched this year that absolutely blew me away, that I had never seen before, was The Long Good Friday. This movie was fantastic, starring Bob Hoskins. I just loved it. It's one of the best gangster movies of all time. If it wasn't for David, a.k.a. Shamrock Balls, I would have never watched this film. He wanted to do it on the Let's Talk podcast, and, he never steers me wrong when it comes to movies, so I was like, sure, we'll do it. And we watched this movie. I think it came out in 1980. Features a very young Pierce Brosnan in his first movie role. The guy doesn't even have dialogue. Actually, he has one line of dialogue, which I believe was improvised. You don't know how this story's going to end up with the way it starts. It starts out fantastically, and one thing that really stands out in The Long Good Friday is its fantastic score. And this just received a 4K Blu-ray from not only the Criterion Collection, but it also did from, I believe, Studio Canal over in the UK. And that's awesome. It's a beautiful 4K Blu-ray. I picked up the 4K Blu-ray from Criterion in this Criterion 4K sale that's going on right now through Barnes & Noble, and I'm really glad I did. I'll probably have a 4K review of that movie sometime in December, to wrap up the year. Some 4K Blu-rays that I haven't reviewed here on the channel, like Deadpool and Wolverine, Twisters, Happiness on 4K from the Criterion Collection as well I picked up, and then The Long Good Friday. But The Long Good Friday, if you guys haven't seen it, that movie is on Max right now as well, and I can highly recommend it. It's one of the best gangster films of all time. Maybe not as good as the Godfather movies or Goodfellas. Some people I could see making an argument for Goodfellas, but it's not as good as the Godfather movie. It's a really good movie, though. Definitely check out The Long Good Friday. That's another great question. Thank you so much. And then our last two questions for this week are going to both be about Christmas, so hold on one second. Had to throw on the Christmas gear if we're going to be talking about Christmas. And the next question is from Bill Wisley, and he asked, what's your favorite Christmas movie that isn't on Blu-ray yet? So I actually had to do a little bit of research out there, because apparently a lot of movies come to Blu-ray that are related to Christmas, which makes a lot of sense. A lot of movies that aren't that great get forgiven just because they have Christmas tied into it. I just always assumed that I'll Be Home for Christmas, starring Jonathan Taylor Thomas, didn't have a Blu-ray release. I didn't think that many people liked that movie. Turns out it does. Almost Christmas, another one that stars Danny Glover. I didn't think that many people saw that movie. It's a fantastic Christmas movie. Check that one out. Has a Blu-ray release. So I was like, what could it be? And I remember a couple years ago, a bunch of movies just came right to HBO Max, and two of those movies were 8-Bit Christmas, and I think it was A Christmas Story 2, the sequel to A Christmas Story. I know there was actually A Christmas Story 2 that came out that's a sequel, but no one talks about it. The actual sequel to A Christmas Story. Both of those movies came directly to HBO Max, so you were able to watch them day and date, didn't go to theaters, nothing. So those movies never got a physical media release. So I think that those movies are well deserving of at least a Blu-ray release, and I think one day we will get them. But they're Warner Brothers properties; they could get 4K Blu-ray releases. An 8-bit Christmas, especially, just having that 1980s nostalgic feel, which I understand why people would say is kind of getting worn down at this point. Like maybe we're overusing it. Still think 8-bit Christmas was a lot of fun. Again, maybe not a great movie, but just because it's around the Christmas holiday and we're hitting all those Christmas movie tropes, you still forgive it. And I think it's definitely one that's worthy of at least a Blu-ray release, right? So that was a great question as well. And then the next question, and our last question this week, is from Timmy, and he wrote, what 5 movies are must-watches during the Christmas season? And this also ties into a question from Uncle Charlie, who wrote, when do you start watching Christmas movies? And these are no particular order. I just have to watch these every single year. And I got right here at number 1, It's a Wonderful Life. I love this movie. This movie's guaranteed another one to make me cry every single year. There's always a good chance I'll watch It's a Wonderful Life at least twice a season, because not only do you get this beautiful 4K Blu-ray, but you also get the colorized version, which isn't as offensive as a lot of people will make it out to seem. Yeah, they probably shouldn't have done it, but they did do it, and I don't mind it, so I'll probably watch it in color and black and white every single year. It's a masterpiece, this movie. I know this will start a debate, but I don't care. Die Hard. This one actually opens up the Christmas season for me. The day after Thanksgiving, it's a tradition. Me and my wife Faith will always put on Die Hard to open up the Christmas movie watching season. Love Die Hard. I know a lot of people don't agree it's a Christmas movie, but it certainly ain't a summer movie when it came out. Next up, which got a great 4K Blu-ray release, Scrooged. This is the Richard Donner take on A Christmas Carol, and we get Frank Cross in this one instead of Ebenezer Scrooge, and he plays the perfect Scrooge. Bill Murray, he's played this character numerous times. He's perfect for it. An asshole who needs to learn his way. You could have put him on the greatest movie a-holes list if you wanted to. Could have put a bunch of Bill Murray characters on that list. They always got to learn their lesson. Bill Murray plays these characters perfect, and oh man, love watching this movie every single year. It's also got a great Danny Elfman score. And next up is The Santa Claus, which does not have a 4K Blu-ray release, and this is a Disney property, one of their most famous properties, so of course this will not get a 4K Blu-ray release anytime soon. I also do like the sequels. I don't like the show. That's not fair to say. How can I say I don't like a show that I didn't watch? I didn't watch the show, so to be fair, I don't know if I like it or not, but either way, this movie came out in 1994. I was born in 1992. I remember seeing this movie in at least 94 or 95, and this is the image of Santa Claus to me. When I think of Santa Claus, I think of Tim Allen towards the end of this movie when he's officially Santa Claus. That is Santa Claus to me. That's always the image. When someone says, who is Santa, or what does Santa look like, my head will immediately pop to Tim Allen as Santa Claus. The movie itself, fantastic. I will always watch this one every single year. Judge Reinhold is still really funny in this movie with his ridiculous sweaters, but obviously it's Tim Allen's movie. Came out, I believe he had the #1 movie, #1 book, and #1 show at this point with the Santa Claus. He had his biography out, and then of course Home Improvement. And I love the Santa Claus. And then the last one that we're going to talk about, and this is one I'll watch like 2 to 3 times a season, Christmas Vacation. This movie, it's a masterpiece because not only is it a great Christmas movie, not only is it the best vacation movie, but this is also just a great comedy, just a great film in general. I quote this movie year round. Like me and my wife Faith, this is a really special movie to the two of us. The second Christmas we ever spent together, and it's one of my favorite Christmas memories ever. Is, I'm not somebody who really likes to go out a lot. I like to just stay home. And, a big thing about Christmas is spending time with your family. But for me, if family has things to do and, they're going to go out of town this year, I'm not going to be that upset about it. And that year, my family, her family, they were not going to be in the States. So we're going to spend Christmas alone. And we spent that morning drinking mimosas and watching Christmas Vacation. And it's one of my favorite Christmas memories of all time. And it's something I'll always cherish. And this movie is just a perfect film, in my opinion. It is the best vacation movie. It's Chevy Chase's best movie. And, I mean, if you're not quoting Christmas Vacation this time of the year, what are you doing with your life? And that was a great question as well. And thank you guys all so much for being here with me on another episode of the Let's Talk Q&A show. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave your questions for next week's show as well in this video, or you can wait for the post I put out every single week. And also, guys, we have channel memberships. So if you want to become a friend of the channel, producer for the channel, like John Doe Juggalo or Jed Eckhart, you can do that. And you can also become a channel director like Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews and Mr. Smelly Potato. But if you got no money to throw away, guys, don't you worry about it at all. We just hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, get out those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.